The void held its breath. Through the inky blackness, a sleek vessel moved, a silent predator in the cosmic ocean. Its hull, a cascade of liquid mercury, was etched with patterns that pulsed with a quiet, otherworldly light. This was no mere starship. It was the crown jewel of the Keltharian Empire. And on its bridge stood Ambassador Vornak, a name whispered with a mix of awe and fear across 100 subjugated worlds. Vornak was a figure carved from time itself. Tall and imposing, his stone-gray skin was a tapestry of ceremonial scars, each one a testament to a world brought to heel not by war, but by words. 6 fingers tapped a slow, patient rhythm against the observation deck's transparent wall. He watched the blue marble of Earth swell in the viewport, a primitive bauble in the vastness of space. Behind him, his chief advisor, Rilke, moved with the silent grace of a shadow. Her Thessian features were sharp, her eyes calculating 1,000 futures in a single blink. Her silver robes whispered as she manipulated the holographic display. "Ambassador," she announced, her voice tinged with amusement. "The final scan of their defenses is complete. The results are, as expected." Laughable, Vornak turned, a flicker of curiosity in his ancient eyes. "Show me." The air in the chamber shimmered and solidified into 3-dimensional images of human spacecraft. They were clumsy, awkward things, trailing thick plumes of exhaust from their crude engines. The largest of them was a child's toy next to the Keltharian vessel. 53 operational interstellar craft, Rilke narrated, her fingers dancing over the controls. 38 are civilian transports. The remaining 15 are classified as military, though that term is generous. Their weapons are mostly kinetic projectiles and primitive missiles. Our shields wouldn't even register an impact. A thin, cold smile touched Vornak's lips. This was a familiar story. He had performed this ballet of subjugation 42 times before. A young species stumbles into the stars, full of hope. The Confederation arrives offering technology, protection, and a place in their grand alliance. The price? A quiet surrender of their economy, their resources, their autonomy. By the time they realized they'd traded their freedom for a gilded cage, the lock had already been turned. "And their political structure?" Vornak asked, sinking into his command chair, which molded itself to his form. "Fragmented," Rilke replied, pulling up new data. "Over 200 separate nations. They have a United Earth Council for space, but its authority is weak. They're still fighting amongst themselves." "Perfect," Vornak murmured. "Division is weakness. They'll be desperate for the stability we offer." A young officer, Dravek, approached from the communications post. He was new, his bronze scales still gleaming with the naive belief that their mission was noble. "Ambassador, we're receiving transmissions from the human homeworld. They're asking us to identify ourselves and state our intentions." "Standard procedure," Vornak waved a dismissive hand. "Send the usual greeting. We come in peace, bearing gifts of knowledge and friendship. Schedule a meeting with their council in 72 hours. That will give them just enough time to panic, to argue, and to finally understand they have no other choice." Dravek hesitated, his youth showing in his uncertain posture. "Sir, what if they refuse?" The bridge fell silent. Rilke shared a knowing glance with Vornak. The ambassador rose and walked to the young officer, placing a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Young Dravek, in my long career, only 3 species have ever refused our initial offer. Do you know what happened to them?" Dravek shook his head, a ripple of unease moving through his scales. "The Korthan Collective refused," Vornak began, his voice dropping to a storyteller's cadence. "Within 6 months, their trade routes mysteriously dried up, and their economy collapsed. The Yandere Union refused. Pirate attacks on their ships skyrocketed, and their calls for help went unanswered. The Brelix Commonwealth refused. A plague swept through their colonies, a plague for which only we had the cure. By the time they begged us to reconsider, millions were already dead." His grip on Dravek's shoulder tightened. "We don't conquer with force, young one. We conquer with necessity. We create the problems for which we are the only solution. The humans will not be forced to join us. They will beg for the privilege." Rilke cleared her throat. "There is one small detail in our intelligence, Ambassador. The humans have been unusually quiet about their military development for the last 15 years. Our surveillance picked up encrypted communications about something called Project Colossus. But we couldn't break the encryption. Vornak shrugged it off. A planetary defense system, no doubt. Some network of satellites or ground-based cannons. It's nothing that could threaten a starship. Their technology is far too primitive. The Keltharian vessel continued its descent, its sensors drinking in every detail of the civilization below. Cities blazed like scattered jewels across the continents. Small, functional orbital stations spun in the darkness. Everything fit the profile. Everything pointed to another easy, bloodless victory. What Vornak and his crew could not see were the sprawling construction bays hidden in the dark, silent shadows of Earth's moon. They could not detect the quantum-shielded facility that held humanity's greatest, most guarded secret. They did not know that for the 20 years they had been watching Earth, Earth had been watching them back and preparing for this very day. In that hidden lunar facility, Admiral Thomas Bridger stood before a viewport of his own. But he wasn't looking at the approaching Keltharian ship. He was looking at something else, something impossible, something that, according to every known law of galactic civilization, should not exist. The humans had an old saying, one Vornak would have done well to remember. Assumption is the mother of all failures, and the Keltharian Empire had just made the biggest assumption of its long, predatory life. Their peaceful greeting was about to receive a very unexpected and very human response. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. The lunar facility known as Sanctuary Base hummed with barely contained energy. Deep within the moon's crust, protected by layers of rock and quantum shielding technology that humanity had developed in secret, the greatest achievement of human engineering floated in its massive construction bay. Admiral Thomas Bridger had seen it 1,000 times. Yet each viewing filled him with the same mixture of awe and terror. The Colossus-Class Dreadnought Titan's fist stretched nearly 3 kilometers from stem to stern. Its hull was not the crude metal that adorned the decoys humanity had deliberately left visible to alien surveillance. Instead, it was layered with adaptive armor plating that could redistribute impact forces across its entire surface. Weapon ports lined its flanks like the scales of some prehistoric beast, each housing firepower that could reduce a mountain to dust. At its heart, a zero-point energy reactor pulsed with enough power to illuminate a small star. Beside Bridger stood Director Elizabeth Park, the brilliant mind behind Project Colossus. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes reflected the blue glow of the holographic displays that surrounded them. Those eyes had not seen real sleep in 72 hours, not since the alien vessel had entered their solar system. The Keltharian ship is maintaining a steady approach vector, Park reported, her fingers dancing across the transparent interface. They have made no effort to mask their presence or scan beyond our orbital infrastructure. They think they know everything about us. Bridger allowed himself a grim smile. Good, let them keep thinking it. What is the status of the diplomatic delegation? President Morrison and the Earth Council are prepared to receive the aliens as planned. They will listen to the offer, ask the appropriate questions, and buy us time to assess the threat level. Park pulled up a new display showing the interior of the alien vessel. The images were grainy but clear enough. Our infiltration drones have given us a complete layout of their ship. Their weapons are impressive by conventional standards, but nothing our shields cannot handle. Conventional standards, Bridger repeated, tasting the words. 15 years ago, when we found that abandoned Varelian trade station drifting near Neptune, we learned that conventional standards were about to get us enslaved. Tell me again what the station's AI told us. Park did not need to consult her notes. The warning was burned into her memory. The Galactic Confederation operates under a system of enforced dependency. New species are welcomed with gifts of technology, but the gifts come with strings. Mining rights that strip worlds bare, trade agreements that create permanent debt, military restrictions that ensure new members can never defend themselves against the older powers. The Varelians learned too late. By the time they understood the trap, their homeworld was an industrial wasteland worked by their own people as laborers. And the AI gave us something else, Bridger added. It gave us their technical specifications, their weapons, their shields, their entire technological database because it wanted at least one species to escape the trap. The Admiral walked along the observation platform, his boots ringing against the metal grating. Below him, thousands of technicians swarmed over the Titan's fist, making final adjustments and running last-minute diagnostics. These men and women represented the best minds from every nation on Earth. When Project Colossus had begun, old rivalries and borders had melted away in the face of a common threat. Humanity had finally learned to work together, united by the knowledge that their freedom hung in the balance. "We built this ship in secret," Bridger said quietly. "We developed technologies that the Confederation thinks are centuries beyond us. We did it all while making sure their spy drones saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Old rockets. Primitive weapons. A species too backward to be a threat. But Elizabeth, I need to know something." Park turned to face him, and for the first time since the crisis began, Bridger saw uncertainty in her eyes. "Are we really ready?" he asked. "Not just technologically. Are we ready as a species to reject what they are going to offer? They will promise us cures for every disease, technology to end poverty and hunger, clean energy, extended lifespans, everything that sounds like paradise. And we are going to say no." Park was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had wrestled with the same questions for years. "Admiral, do you know what my grandmother told me when I was a child? She grew up in a country under occupation, foreign soldiers on every corner, promising security and prosperity in exchange for obedience. She said the hardest part was not fighting the enemy. It was fighting the part of yourself that wanted to believe the promises, that wanted to take the easy path." She gestured toward the Titan's fist. "We built this because we know the easy path leads to chains. Maybe it would take 50 years, maybe 100. But eventually we would wake up in a gilded cage, and by then it would be too late to break free. So yes, Admiral, we are ready. We have to be." A communication alert chimed through the facility. The face of Captain James Okafor appeared on the main screen. He commanded the Titan's fist, and his record of service included combat operations on 3 continents and 2 years at the Mars Defense Academy. If humanity needed a warrior to make it stand, they had chosen well. "Admiral Bridger, all systems are operational," Okafor reported. "The crew is at battle stations. We can launch on your command." "Stand by, Captain," Bridger replied. "The diplomatic contact happens in 18 hours. We will give the Confederation one chance to walk away peacefully, but if they push, if they threaten, if they so much as hint that refusal is not an option, then you will show them what humanity really is." "Understood, sir. Titan's fist will be ready." The screen went dark and Bridger turned back to the viewport. Somewhere beyond the moon, beyond the orbital stations and the careful deception of apparent weakness, the Keltharian diplomatic vessel drew closer to Earth. Ambassador Vornak was probably composing his victory speech. Rilke was likely preparing the standard subjugation contracts. They had done this so many times before. They knew exactly how it would play out, but they had never met a species like humanity. They had never encountered a civilization that had been given advance warning. They had never faced prey that had sharpened its teeth and waited in the darkness for the predator to arrive. Park moved to stand beside Bridger, and together they watched the final preparations on the dreadnought below. "You know what is going to happen if we do this," she said softly. "If we reveal the Titan's fist, if we reject their offer, we will be sending a message to the entire galaxy. The Confederation will not forgive this insult. Every species they control will hear about the humans who said no." "I know," Bridger replied. "We will become a target. They will come at us with everything they have. Our lives are about to get very complicated and very dangerous, but we will be free. But we will be free." In the diplomatic vessel approaching Earth, Ambassador Vornak retired to his quarters, satisfied that tomorrow would bring another easy victory. He did not know that his assumptions were about to cost him everything. He did not know that the primitive species he had come to dominate had spent 15 years preparing for this exact moment. He did not know that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to appear weak while sharpening knives in the darkness. The stage was set. The players were in position, and the galaxy was about to learn that some species refused to bow, no matter how long the odds or how powerful the enemy. Tomorrow, everything would change. The chamber where humanity would meet its potential masters had been carefully chosen. The Unity Hall stood in Geneva, its architecture a blend of old-world elegance and modern design, with soaring windows that allowed natural light to pour across marble floors. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the observation galleries, their faces a mixture of hope and carefully concealed fear. They knew what rode on the next few hours. They knew that the wrong words, the wrong gesture, could condemn their children to lives of servitude. President Catherine Morrison stood at the central podium, her silver hair catching the light. At 70 years old, she had been chosen to lead Earth's government precisely because she understood history. She had studied the fall of civilizations, the colonization of continents, the countless times throughout human history when powerful entities had arrived bearing gifts that turned to chains. Her hands rested calmly on the podium, but her heart hammered against her ribs. The doors opened, and Ambassador Vornak entered with Rilke at his side. They moved with the confident grace of those who had never known defeat. Vornak's ceremonial robes flowed around him, embedded with technology that created subtle patterns of light. It was meant to impress, to intimidate, to remind these primitives of the vast gulf between their civilizations. President Morrison, Vornak began, his voice modulated to sound warm and friendly. On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I bring greetings from 1,000 worlds. We have traveled far to welcome humanity into the greatest alliance the universe has ever known. Morrison nodded respectfully. We are honored by your presence, Ambassador. Humanity has long wondered if we were alone in the cosmos. To learn that we have neighbors is extraordinary. More than neighbors, Vornak continued, gesturing broadly. We offer you family, protection, a chance to join a community that spans the stars. We have watched your species struggle with disease, poverty, and conflict. These struggles need not continue. The Confederation possesses medical technology that can extend human lifespans by centuries. We have energy systems that can power your world without pollution. We have knowledge that can elevate your entire civilization overnight. The words hung in the air like honey, sweet and thick. Morrison could feel the weight of every eye in the chamber upon her. How many of those watching wanted her to say yes? How many were thinking of sick relatives who could be cured? Of grandchildren who could grow up in a world without war or hunger? The temptation was a living thing coiling around her resolve. These are generous offers, Morrison said carefully. What would the Confederation ask in return? Rilke stepped forward, her sharp features arranged in what was probably meant to be a reassuring smile. Very little, truly. Access to certain mineral resources that you barely use. Trade agreements that would benefit both parties. And for your own protection, we would need to monitor your military development. New species sometimes build weapons without understanding the consequences. We simply ensure galactic peace. There it was. Hidden in reasonable words and calm tones, the trap was springing shut. Give us your resources. Give us economic control. Give us your ability to defend yourselves. Trust us to protect you. And if humanity said yes in 50 years or 100, they would wake up to find themselves workers in their own minds, second-class citizens in a galaxy that had welcomed them with smiles and enslaved them with contracts. Morrison took a slow breath. Behind Vornak and Rilke, visible through the hall's great windows, the sky was beginning to change. A shadow was moving across the sun, something vast and impossible. Ambassador Vornak, Morrison said, her voice steady and clear. Before I respond to your offer, there is something you should see. Something we have been working on while you were watching us from afar. Vornak's expression flickered with confusion, then irritation. This was not how the script was supposed to go. Primitive species did not have surprises. They did not have secrets. They sat in awe and gratitude and signed the papers they were given. I assure you, President Morrison, whatever technology you believe you have developed, it pales in comparison to what we offer. Perhaps, Morrison replied, but I think you should look outside. The Titan's fist emerged from behind the moon like a god of war ascending from the depths. Its 3-kilometer hull caught the sunlight and transformed it into something terrible and beautiful. Weapon ports glowed with barely restrained power. Shield generators created a shimmering field around the vessel that made space itself seem to ripple. The adaptive armor plates shifted and flowed like liquid metal, optimizing for combat readiness. On the bridge of his diplomatic vessel, still in orbit, Dravik stared at his sensor readings with disbelief turning rapidly to horror. Ambassador, we have a contact. A massive contact. It just appeared from lunar orbit. Mass readings are off the scale. Energy signatures are beyond anything in our database. Vornak had rushed to the nearest communication station, his composure cracking for the first time in 2 centuries. That is impossible. Our surveillance showed no construction of any vessel that size. Their largest ship is 400 meters. The ships you saw, Morrison's voice came through the communication channel, calm and implacable, were exactly what we wanted you to see. While your drones watched our decoys, we built the Titan's Fist. While your analysts reported our primitive weapons, we developed technology that your Confederation has never encountered. You thought you were studying prey, Ambassador. You never realized you were being studied in return. The Titan's Fist moved into a position between Earth and the diplomatic vessel. It did not make threats. It did not need to. Its very existence was a statement written in metal and fire. 15 years ago, Morrison continued, we found a derelict station near Neptune. The artificial intelligence aboard told us about the Confederation, about how you operate, about the trap you set for every new species you encounter. That AI had watched its own people fall into your web, and it could not save them, but it could save us. It gave us your technical specifications, your weapons data, your shield frequencies, everything we needed to build something you could not defeat. Vornak's scales had gone pale, a sign of shock in his species. You are making a grave mistake. The Confederation protects hundreds of worlds. If you reject our offer, if you threaten our representatives, you will face consequences beyond your imagination. We threaten no one, Morrison replied, and now her voice carried steel beneath the diplomacy. We simply refuse to be threatened ourselves. Your offer of protection is slavery dressed in kind words. Your gifts come with chains attached. We choose freedom, Ambassador Vornak. We choose to stand on our own, to make our own mistakes, to forge our own path among the stars. And if the Confederation cannot accept a relationship between equals, then we have no relationship at all. The silence that followed was profound. In the Unity Hall, representatives from every nation held their breath. On the diplomatic vessel, Vornak's crew waited for orders that did not come. And in the command chair of the Titan's Fist, Captain Okafor watched his tactical displays with the calm readiness of someone prepared to defend everything he loved. Finally, Vornak spoke, and his voice had lost all its warmth. You are primitives playing with fire. When the Confederation learns what you have done, they will respond with force. Let them come, Morrison said quietly. Let them send their fleets. Let them learn what happens when they mistake mercy for weakness. Humanity did not claw its way up from the caves to bow before distant masters. We will meet the Confederation as equals or as enemies, but never as servants. The diplomatic vessel began to turn, preparing for its departure. Vornak had one final message delivered with cold fury. You have made yourselves a target, President Morrison. Every species in the Confederation will hear about your defiance. You will stand alone. Then we will stand alone together, Morrison replied, and perhaps other species who are tired of your protection will find courage in our example. Perhaps the Confederation's grip is not as strong as you believe. Perhaps the galaxy is ready for something new. The alien vessel accelerated away from Earth, carrying its shocked and humiliated crew back toward whatever judgment awaited them. The Titan's Fist remained on station, a guardian and a symbol. Humanity had thrown down the gauntlet. The road ahead would be dangerous and uncertain. There would be battles to fight and prices to pay. But they would pay those prices as free people, architects of their own destiny. In the Unity Hall, as the realization of what they had done settled over the assembly, something unexpected happened. Someone began to clap. Then another joined. Then another. Within moments, the chamber erupted in applause that echoed off the marble and glass. They were clapping not for easy victory, but for the courage to choose difficulty over comfort, freedom over security, the hard path over the easy lie. Admiral Bridger watched from Sanctuary Base, and for the first time in months he allowed himself to smile. Director Park stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. They had done it. Against all odds and all reason, humanity had looked into the face of overwhelming power and said no. The galaxy would remember this day. The Confederation would never forget it. And somewhere among the stars, other oppressed species would hear the story and begin to wonder if they too might dare to dream of freedom. The Titan's Fist hung in space like a promise and a warning. We are here. We are free. And we will not go quietly into anyone's cage.